The money pouch felt lighter than it should have, as Olivia Rhodes clutched it through the worn fabric of her traveling dress, standing on the crowded platform of the Kansas City depot in the sweltering heat of July 1882. She had counted those bills 3 times that morning before leaving the boarding house, enough for her train ticket to Nevada and a few meals along the way. But when she opened the pouch now with trembling fingers, there was nothing inside except a small torn piece of newspaper that must have blown in somehow. Her heart dropped into her stomach like a stone down a well. The train to Nevada was boarding in 20 minutes, and without that money, she had no way to purchase her ticket to Lovelock, where a man named Gerald Patterson waited to marry her. They had exchanged letters for 6 months, his words painting pictures of wide open spaces and a ranch that needed a woman's touch, her responses carefully crafted to show she was educated but practical, kind but not weak. She had sold nearly everything she owned to afford this journey west, leaving behind the cramped tenement in Philadelphia, where she had worked herself to exhaustion in a textile factory after her parents died of fever 2 winters past. Olivia stood frozen on the platform, watching other passengers hurry past with their luggage and their purpose, while her own future crumbled around her like old brick. She searched through her carpet bag frantically, hoping perhaps she had absent-mindedly tucked the money elsewhere, but found only her spare dress, undergarments, her mother's Bible, and the stack of letters tied with string that represented her only connection to the man expecting her arrival in 10 days' time. "Madam, are you quite all right?" The voice came from behind her, deep and steady with a slight drawl that marked him as someone from further south. She turned to find a tall man watching her with concern etched into sun-weathered features. He wore dusty traveling clothes, dark trousers and a worn vest over a blue cotton shirt, with a brown hat shading eyes that were a striking combination of green and gold, like sunlight through leaves. He appeared to be in his late 20s, perhaps 30 at most, with the kind of strong build that came from years of hard physical work. A revolver hung at his hip, but he did not strike her as dangerous, merely as someone prepared for the realities of traveling through rough country. "I have been robbed," Olivia heard herself say, her voice catching slightly. She straightened her shoulders, determined not to cry in front of a stranger. "My ticket money was stolen right here on this platform, and I have a train to catch to Nevada." The man's expression darkened with sympathy and anger at the injustice. Pickpockets work these crowds regular. They know folks traveling west carry their life savings. He glanced toward the train, where the conductor was beginning his final boarding call. "You have someone expecting you in Nevada." "In Lovelock. I am supposed to marry a rancher there named Gerald Patterson." The words felt hollow now, a dream that had been within reach moments ago but was now impossibly distant. The stranger studied her for a long moment, and she became acutely aware of how she must look. 22 years old with dark blonde hair coming loose from its pins after the morning's travels, her dress showing its age and the countless mendings she had done by candlelight. But his gaze held no judgment, only a kind of thoughtful assessment. "How much do you need for the ticket?" he asked. Olivia blinked at him in surprise. "Sir, I cannot accept money from a stranger. I was merely explaining my situation, not asking for charity." "Did not figure you were asking, but I am offering just the same." He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a leather wallet that looked well used but substantial. "Name is Nathan Quinn. I have a ranch north of Lovelock, been back east settling my late father's estate these past 2 months. I am heading home on that same train, and it seems a shame for you to miss your new life because some coward stole from a lady." The conductor's voice rang out across the platform, announcing 5 minutes until departure. Olivia felt panic rising in her chest. If she missed this train, she would have no money for lodging, no money for food, no way to contact Gerald Patterson to explain the delay. She would be stranded in Kansas City with nothing and no one. "The ticket costs $12, she said quietly, hating the desperation in her own voice. "I will pay you back every cent, I give you my word. Once I am married, I will send the money to your ranch." Nathan Quinn was already counting out bills. "I have no doubt you are good for it, Miss Rhodes, but let us call it a loan with no set terms. You pay me back when and if you are able, and if you cannot, then consider it my good deed for the year." He handed her $15. "The extra is for meals on the journey. It is a long way to Nevada, and you should not go hungry." Olivia took the money with hands that shook slightly, overwhelmed by the kindness of this stranger. "I do not know how to thank you, Mr. Quinn. You have saved my entire future. Just get yourself on that train, madam. We can sort out the gratitude later." His smile transformed his serious face into something warmer, almost boyish despite the weathering of sun and wind. She hurried to the ticket window, purchased her passage to Lovelock, and barely made it through the train car doors before the engine began to move. Her heart was still racing as she found an empty seat by a window, setting her carpetbag on the bench beside her. The car was moderately full, with families heading west for new opportunities, businessmen traveling between territories, and a few women who might also be mail-order brides based on their modest luggage and the mixture of excitement and anxiety in their faces. Olivia was smoothing her skirts and trying to calm her breathing when Nathan Quinn appeared in the aisle beside her seat. "Mind if I sit here? Most other spots are taken, and at least we have been introduced after a fashion." "Of course, please." She moved her carpetbag to the floor, making room for him. As he settled into the seat, she caught the scent of leather and something like sage, clean and distinctly Western. "I truly cannot express how grateful I am for your help, Mr. Quinn. You must think me terribly careless to have let someone steal from me. I think you are a brave woman traveling alone to marry a man you have never met, and I think pickpockets are skilled at what they do." He removed his hat, setting it on his knee, revealing dark brown hair that needed a trim. "If you do not mind my asking, how did you come to correspond with Patterson? I know most of the ranchers in the Lovelock area, though I cannot say I recall that particular name." Olivia retrieved the letters from her bag, showing him the most recent one. "He advertised in a Philadelphia newspaper 6 months ago, seeking a wife who could read and manage a household. His letters have been very proper and kind. He described his ranch as modest but growing, with good water access and a small herd of cattle." Nathan read the letter with a slight frown forming between his brows. "The details are a bit vague, are they not? No mention of exactly where the ranch sits, or how many head of cattle, or whether he has hired hands." "I assumed he was being modest," Olivia said, though a small worm of doubt began to turn in her stomach. "Do you think something is amiss with his letters?" "I am sure it is fine," Nathan said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Lovelock is not a large town. Once we arrive, it will be easy enough to inquire after him and make certain everything is as it should be before you commit yourself to marriage." The train rattled westward through the afternoon, and despite the concerning start to their conversation, Olivia found Nathan Quinn to be unexpectedly easy company. He spoke of his ranch, a property his father had established 15 years earlier, when Nevada was still raw territory, building it up from open range into a working cattle operation with a sturdy house and good grazing land along the Humboldt River. He had a small crew of ranch hands, including an older man named Vyson who had worked for his father from the beginning, and knew more about cattle than anyone Nathan had ever met. "My father died this past April," Nathan explained as the landscape began to shift from green Missouri countryside to the flatter expanses of Kansas. "Had a bad fall from his horse and never quite recovered. He had a sister back in Tennessee who he had not spoken to in years, but legally she was owed a portion of the estate. I spent the last 2 months sorting through lawyers and paperwork to settle everything proper. The ranch is fully mine now, but it was a complicated business." "I am sorry for your loss," Olivia said softly. "I lost both my parents 2 years ago to fever. It is a terrible thing to be suddenly alone in the world." "It is indeed." Nathan's eyes held understanding born of shared experience. "Is that why you decided to come west as a mail-order bride?" "Partially. After they died, I had to work in the textile mills to support myself, but the wages were barely enough for rent and food in a tenement with 4 other girls. The work was dangerous, and I saw more than one woman lose fingers to the machines." She looked down at her own hands, calloused from work but still whole. "When I saw the advertisement for a Western bride, it seemed like a chance at a different life. A home of my own, perhaps children someday, open spaces instead of cramped buildings and smoke." "Those are good reasons," Nathan acknowledged. "The West can be harsh, but it also offers freedoms that the cities do not, especially for women willing to work hard. My own mother loved the ranch, though she died when I was 16. She used to say that she could breathe properly out here in a way she never could back east." They fell into comfortable conversation as the train traveled on through the evening and into the night. Nathan proved to be well-read despite his rancher appearance, and they discussed books they had both enjoyed. He was surprised and pleased to learn that Olivia had read some of the classical works, Greek mythology and Shakespeare, alongside more practical volumes on agriculture and animal husbandry, that she had borrowed from a lending library in preparation for ranch life. "Patterson will be lucky to have you," Nathan said at one point, though there was an odd note in his voice that Olivia could not quite interpret. "A woman who can discuss Odysseus and also wants to learn about cattle management is a rare find." Olivia felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. "I simply want to be useful and make a good home. That is all any woman wants, I think." "Maybe," Nathan said thoughtfully, "but I suspect you want more than that, or you would have stayed in Philadelphia and married some factory foreman. You want adventure too, and a life that is your own choosing." His perception startled her because it was absolutely true. She did want those things, had wanted them so desperately that she had been willing to risk everything on letters from a stranger and a train ticket west. Now here she was, still heading toward that unknown future thanks to another stranger's unexpected kindness. The train stopped several times over the next few days, taking on water and coal, allowing passengers to disembark briefly for meals or to stretch their legs. At each stop, Nathan remained near Olivia, a quiet, protective presence that she found increasingly comforting. He pointed out landmarks as they traveled through Kansas and into Colorado, explaining the geography and history of the territories they passed through. On the third day, as they crossed into Utah territory, Olivia finally voiced the question that had been growing in her mind since they met. "Why did you help me, Mr. Quinn? You did not know me, had no obligation to me, yet you gave me money you may never see returned." Nathan was quiet for a long moment, watching the stark beauty of the Utah landscape roll past the window. "My mother came west as a mail-order bride," he finally said. "She married my father sight unseen, traveled from Ohio with everything she owned in 2 carpetbags. She told me once that if not for the kindness of strangers along the way, she might never have made it to Nevada. A woman helped her when she got sick on the train, shared her food and medicine. A family let her stay with them overnight when there was a delay in Salt Lake City. She always believed in passing that kindness forward. "She sounds like she was a wonderful woman," Olivia said. "She was. Strong and practical, but also warm, if that makes sense. She made our house a home even when times were hard." Nathan smiled at the memory. "She would have liked you, I think." She always said that education and courage were the two most important qualities a person could have, and you seemed to possess both. Olivia felt something shift in her chest, a warm flutter that she told herself was simply gratitude and nothing more. It would be foolish to develop feelings for Nathan Quinn when she was traveling to marry another man, when her future was already determined by 6 months of correspondence and promises made. Yet she could not help noticing the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, or how his hands were both strong and gentle when he helped her with her bag at the station stops, or how safe she felt in his presence in a way she had not felt since her father died. On the 5th day of travel, as they crossed into Nevada territory, and the landscape became increasingly arid and beautiful in its starkness, Nathan began to grow quieter. He stared out the window more, spoke less, and Olivia sensed a tension in him that had not been there before. "Are you worried about your ranch?" she asked. "About what you might find after being away for 2 months? Vicent is reliable, and I left detailed instructions, so the ranch should be fine," Nathan said. "I suppose I am just thinking about what happens when we reach Lovelock tomorrow morning. We will arrive, you will meet Patterson, and that will be that. You will have your loan repaid eventually," Olivia offered, though the words felt hollow. "I told you not to worry about the money." Nathan looked at her directly, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "Miss Rhodes, I need to speak plainly with you about something, and I hope you will forgive me if I overstep." "Of course, please speak freely." "These past 5 days, traveling together and talking with you, have been the most enjoyable days I have had in a very long time. You are intelligent and kind and braver than you give yourself credit for, and I find myself wishing that circumstances were different." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I know you are promised to Patterson, and I respect that commitment. But I want you to know that if things are not as they should be when you meet him, if you find that his letters misrepresented the situation, or if you feel unsafe for any reason, you have an alternative. My offer of help does not end when we leave this train." Olivia's heart was pounding so hard she was certain he could hear it. "Mr. Quinn, I do not know what to say. I am honored by your concern, but I have given my word to Mr. Patterson. I cannot simply change my mind because I have enjoyed our conversations." "I am not asking you to change your mind. I am simply saying that you have a choice, should you need one." Nathan reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper, writing quickly with a pencil stub. "This is how to reach my ranch. It is about 15 miles north of town, along the river road. Anyone in Lovelock can give you proper directions." Olivia took the paper with trembling fingers and tucked it into her reticule. "Thank you for everything." They spent the final night of the journey in a silence that was heavy with unspoken words. Olivia barely slept, her mind spinning with confusion and guilt, and something that felt dangerously like hope. She had promised herself to Gerald Patterson based on his letters and the future he offered. It would be wrong to abandon that commitment simply because she found herself drawn to a cowboy who had shown her kindness. Yet she could not deny that her feelings for Nathan Quinn had grown far beyond simple gratitude over the past 5 days. The train pulled into Lovelock, Nevada just after dawn on a bright July morning in 1882. The town was small but bustling, built up around the railroad and the nearby river that gave it life in the desert landscape. Olivia gathered her carpet bag with hands that shook slightly, both from nervousness about meeting her intended husband and from the sadness of saying goodbye to Nathan. They disembarked together onto the wooden platform, and Nathan immediately began scanning the small crowd gathered to meet the train. "Do you see Patterson?" "I do not know what he looks like," Olivia admitted. "He never sent a photograph, and I could not afford to have one made to send to him." A man approached them then, short and stocky with a thick beard and calculating eyes. He looked to be in his late 40s, much older than Olivia had imagined from the letters. "You Miss Olivia Rhodes from Philadelphia?" "I am," Olivia said, her stomach sinking slightly. "Are you Mr. Patterson?" "That's me. Gerald Patterson. You are younger than I expected." His gaze raked over her in a way that made her skin crawl. "Well, no matter, you will do. I have the wagon around back. We should get moving." Nathan stepped forward slightly, placing himself partially between Olivia and Patterson. "Nathan Quinn. I have a ranch north of here. Miss Rhodes and I traveled together from Kansas City. I wonder if I might have a word with you about your property, as I know most of the ranchers in this area but do not recall your name." Patterson's expression soured. "I keep to myself, do not socialize much with other ranchers. As for my property, it is none of your business, Quinn. This lady is my intended bride, and I would thank you not to interfere." "I am not interfering, merely making conversation," Nathan said evenly. "Miss Rhodes, would you like to perhaps have some breakfast in town before heading out to Patterson's ranch? You must be tired from the journey, and it would give you a chance to refresh yourself." Olivia seized on the suggestion gratefully. "That would be lovely, thank you." "Mr. Patterson, I hope you do not mind. It has been a long journey, and I would appreciate a chance to compose myself before seeing your ranch." Patterson looked like he wanted to argue, but with Nathan standing there watching him and other people from the train milling about on the platform, he apparently thought better of it. "Fine. There is a restaurant just down the main street. I will meet you there in 1 hour, and then we go to my place." He turned and stalked off without waiting for a response. Once he was out of earshot, Nathan turned to Olivia with concern clear on his face. "That man is not what you expected, is he?" "No," Olivia admitted quietly. "He is much older than his letters suggested, and there is something about him that feels wrong. But perhaps I am simply nervous. Meeting your future husband for the first time must always be unsettling." "There is a difference between nervous and unsafe," Nathan said firmly. "Will you let me make some inquiries while you have breakfast? I have friends in town who might know something about Patterson and his supposed ranch." Olivia nodded, relief flooding through her. They walked together to the restaurant, a modest establishment with checkered tablecloths and the smell of coffee and bacon filling the air. Nathan settled her at a table near the window, ordered her a full breakfast despite her protests that she could not possibly eat, and then excused himself to ask around town. Olivia tried to eat the eggs and biscuits that the waitress brought, but her stomach was in knots. She watched through the window as the town came to life with the morning, merchants opening their shops, wagons rolling past, children running errands for their parents. It looked like a nice town, the kind of place where a person could build a life. But she could not shake the feeling of unease that Patterson had inspired. Nathan returned 20 minutes later with a grim expression. He slid into the chair across from her and spoke quietly. "Patterson is known in town, but not as a successful rancher. He has a small, run-down property about 8 miles southwest of here. He has gone through 3 mail-order brides in the past 4 years. The first ran off after 2 weeks and was never heard from again. The second managed to escape after 6 months and returned east, though no one knows the details of what happened to her. The third died last winter, officially from pneumonia, though there were some who questioned whether she received proper care. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. Dear God, he is looking for unpaid labor, not a wife. That is what it seems like. The town sheriff is a man named Bill Harper, and he says Patterson stays just on the right side of the law but is known to be rough and mean-spirited. He would not want you going out there alone with him. Nathan reached across the table and took her hand, his grip warm and steady. You do not have to do this, Olivia. You do not owe that man anything. But I have nowhere else to go, Olivia said, hearing the desperation in her own voice. I have no money, no prospects. I came here to marry him, and now what am I to do? You come to my ranch, Nathan said immediately. As my wife. Olivia stared at him in shock. What? Marry me instead of Patterson? Nathan's voice was urgent but sincere. I know we have only known each other 5 days, but I think in that time we have come to know each other better than many couples who court for months. I enjoy your company. I admire your courage, and I believe you could be happy on my ranch. More importantly, you would be safe and respected, not worked like a mule and mistreated. Mr. Quinn, that is an incredibly generous offer, but I cannot ask you to marry me simply to save me from a bad situation. That would not be fair to you. You are not asking. I am offering. And it is not simply to save you from Patterson, though that is certainly part of it. Nathan squeezed her hand gently. Olivia, I was married once before, briefly. Her name was Sarah, and she died of cholera 3 years ago, just 8 months after our wedding. Since then, I have been alone on the ranch, going through the motions of work and life but not truly living. These past 5 days with you have reminded me what it feels like to connect with another person, to look forward to conversation and companionship. I think we could build a good life together, if you are willing. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. The offer was overwhelming in its kindness, and in the solution it provided to her impossible situation. But more than that, she realized that her heart had already begun to choose Nathan Quinn somewhere between Kansas City and Lovelock, in those long hours of conversation and shared laughter, in the way he had looked at her when he thought she was not paying attention. I would not be cheating you. She asked quietly. You truly want me as your wife, not just as a way to rescue me. I truly want you, Nathan said, and the warmth in his eyes left no doubt of his sincerity. I want to show you my ranch and watch your face when you see the mountains in the distance. I want to hear your thoughts on the books in my father's library and learn what you think we should plant in the kitchen garden next spring. I want to build a life with you, Olivia, if you will have me. Yes, Olivia whispered, and then more strongly. Yes, I will marry you, Nathan Quinn. Nathan's face broke into a brilliant smile, and he stood, pulling her to her feet and into an embrace that was both respectful and full of promise. We should get married today, before Patterson comes back and makes trouble. The town has a minister, and we can arrange it within a few hours. They were about to leave the restaurant when Patterson himself appeared in the doorway, his expression dark with anger. I heard you have been asking around about me, Quinn, trying to poison my bride against me. No need to poison her against you when the truth does that job just fine, Nathan said calmly, moving protectively in front of Olivia. Miss Rhodes has decided not to marry you, Patterson. She will be staying here in Lovelock. Patterson's face turned red with rage. I paid for those letters, spent time corresponding with her. She owes me a wife, and I mean to collect. He reached for Olivia, but Nathan blocked him, his hand moving to rest on the revolver at his hip in clear warning. The lady has made her choice. I suggest you respect it and move along. A crowd had begun to gather, drawn by the confrontation. Among them was a tall man with a sheriff's star pinned to his vest, the same Bill Harper that Nathan had mentioned. "There's a problem here, gentlemen. This man is trying to steal my bride," Patterson sputtered. "She came all the way from Philadelphia to marry me, and Quinn here has been filling her head with lies about me." Sheriff Harper looked between the three of them, his gaze finally settling on Olivia. "Madam, did you come here intending to marry Mr. Patterson?" "I did, yes," Olivia said clearly. "But after meeting him and learning about his reputation in town, I have changed my mind. I am going to marry Mr. Quinn instead." "She does not have the right to change her mind," Patterson protested. "We had an agreement." "An agreement based on letters that apparently misrepresented your situation," Nathan interjected. "And last I checked, a woman still has the right to refuse a marriage proposal in this territory." The sheriff nodded. "That is correct." "Madam, if you are saying you do not wish to marry Patterson, then you do not have to, regardless of any previous correspondence. Patterson, I suggest you head on home before this gets any uglier. You have run off enough brides that folks are starting to talk, and you do not want to add threatening behavior to your reputation." Patterson glared at all of them with pure venom in his eyes. "You will regret this," he said to Olivia. "Both of you will." Then he turned and shoved his way through the crowd, disappearing down the street. The sheriff watched him go and then turned back to Nathan and Olivia. "You folks really planning to get married today?" "We are," Nathan confirmed. "Is Reverend Walsh still preaching at the church on 3rd Street?" "He is, and I suspect he would be happy to perform the ceremony. You will need witnesses, though." The sheriff gestured to a few people in the crowd. "I reckon some of us could stand up for you, seeing as how you are new in town, madam." Within 2 hours, Olivia found herself standing in a small church with whitewashed walls and simple wooden pews, wearing her best dress that had been hastily brushed clean of travel dust, holding a bouquet of wildflowers that the sheriff's wife had picked from her garden. Nathan stood beside her in his cleanest shirt, his hair still damp from washing at the barber shop, looking at her with such genuine affection that her heart felt full to bursting. Before the ceremony began, Nathan suddenly said, "Wait just a moment. I need to do this proper." He turned to Reverend Walsh. "Could you give us 5 minutes, Reverend? I will be right back." He hurried out of the church, leaving Olivia confused and slightly worried, but he returned quickly, slightly breathless, carrying a small box from the general store. He opened it to reveal a simple gold wedding band, not fancy but solid and real. "Every bride deserves a wedding ring," Nathan said softly. "I should have thought of it sooner, but better late than never." Olivia felt tears slide down her cheeks at the gesture. "Nathan, you have already spent so much on me. The train ticket, meals, and now this. You are about to become my wife. Everything I have is yours, including a simple gold ring to show the world you are spoken for." He smiled at her, then turned to the Reverend. "Now we are ready." The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. Reverend Walsh spoke about the sanctity of marriage and the commitment they were making to each other. Nathan's responses were clear and firm, his eyes never leaving Olivia's face. When it came time for her vows, Olivia found her voice steady despite her emotional state, promising to love and honor this man who had shown her such unexpected kindness. Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, the gold warm against her skin. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed her gently, a sweet brush of lips that held the promise of deeper affection to come. They signed the marriage certificate with the sheriff and his wife as witnesses, making it legal and binding. Olivia Rhodes became Olivia Quinn in the space of an afternoon. Her entire life transformed by a stolen ticket and a cowboy's generosity. The sheriff's wife, a kind woman named Martha Harper, insisted on hosting a small wedding dinner at their home, inviting several of the town's more prominent citizens to welcome Olivia to Lovelock society. It was nothing fancy, but the warmth and genuine welcome from these strangers touched Olivia deeply. She began to understand what Nathan had meant about the West offering different possibilities than the crowded, anonymous cities back east. As evening approached, Nathan borrowed a wagon from the livery stable and loaded Olivia's single carpet bag into the back. "It is about an hour's drive to the ranch," he explained as he helped her up onto the seat. "We should arrive just as the sun is setting, which will give you a beautiful first view of the place." They left Lovelock behind, following a well-worn road that paralleled the Humboldt River. The landscape was harsh but striking, with sagebrush and scattered Joshua trees, distant mountains turning purple in the fading light. Nathan pointed out landmarks as they drove, explaining the boundaries of his property and the best grazing areas for the cattle. "Vicent will be surprised to find me married," Nathan said with a slight smile. "I sent him a telegram from Kansas City saying when I would arrive, but obviously I had no way to mention acquiring a wife along the way. How many ranch hands do you have?" Olivia asked, suddenly nervous about meeting Nathan's crew and being judged by them. "Just Vicent and two younger men, Tom and Ben. Vicent has been with the ranch for 15 years and is as much family as employee at this point. Tom and Ben are brothers, good workers, came up from Texas last year looking for steady employment. They live in the bunkhouse and take their meals with me in the main house, though I suspect we will need to adjust those arrangements now that you are here." As they rounded a bend in the road, the ranch came into view, and Olivia caught her breath at the sight. It was larger and more prosperous looking than she had expected, with a solid 2-story house built of wood and stone, a big barn, several outbuildings, and corrals holding dozens of horses and cattle. The land stretched out in all directions, green along the river but rising to drier hills in the distance. "Nathan, it is beautiful," she said softly. "It will be even more so with you in it," he replied, and she could hear the pleasure in his voice at her reaction. As they pulled up to the house, an older Mexican man emerged from the barn, followed by 2 younger cowboys. The older man's weathered face split into a huge smile when he saw Nathan. "Boss, you are home. We got your telegram and have been expecting you." Vicent's English was accented but clear. Then he noticed Olivia and his eyebrows rose in surprise. "And you have brought a guest." "More than a guest, Vicent. This is my wife, Olivia. We were married this afternoon in Lovelock." Nathan jumped down from the wagon and came around to help Olivia down, his hand steady at her waist. Vicent looked stunned for a moment, then his face broke into an even wider smile. "A wife. This is wonderful news, boss. The ranch has needed a lady's presence." He swept off his hat and made a small bow to Olivia. "Welcome, Senora Quinn. I am Vicent Morales, and these 2 are Tom and Ben Jackson." The 2 younger men removed their hats as well, nodding politely. They appeared to be in their early 20s, with the lean, sun-browned look of men who spent their days working outdoors. Tom, the taller of the 2, spoke up. "Pleased to meet you, madam. Congratulations on your marriage." "Thank you," Olivia said, feeling overwhelmed but touched by their courtesy. "I am pleased to meet all of you." Nathan retrieved her carpet bag from the wagon and handed the reins to Ben. "Could you see to the horses? I want to show Olivia the house before it gets too dark." He led her up the porch steps and through the front door into a spacious main room that served as both living area and dining room. The furniture was sturdy and practical, clearly made to last rather than for style, but everything was clean and well maintained. A large stone fireplace dominated one wall, and windows on the opposite side faced toward the river, offering a view that must be stunning in daylight. "The kitchen is through there." Nathan indicated a doorway to the left. "My bedroom, our bedroom now, is upstairs along with two smaller rooms that could be for children eventually, if we are blessed with them. My father's library is the small room off to the right here. He collected books for years, and I think you will enjoy exploring his collection." Olivia walked through the rooms slowly, taking in her new home. It was rustic compared to city dwellings, but comfortable and welcoming in a way her cramped tenement room had never been. When she entered the library and saw the shelves lined with books, she actually gasped with delight. "Nathan, there must be over 100 books here. Agricultural texts, novels, poetry, histories. This is a treasure." My father believed that living in rough country was no excuse for ignorance. He read every evening after dinner without fail. Nathan came to stand beside her, looking at the shelves with affection. "They are yours now, too, to read whenever you like." That simple statement, the casual way he included her in ownership of his home and possessions, made Olivia's eyes sting with tears. She turned to face him fully. "I need you to know something, Nathan. I did not marry you simply because you rescued me from Patterson, though I am deeply grateful for that. These past 5 days, talking with you and learning who you are, I have developed genuine feelings for you. I want to be a good wife to you, not just in name but in truth." Nathan reached up and gently brushed away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "I am glad to hear it, because I have developed genuine feelings for you as well. I know our courtship was unconventional and brief, but I believe we can build something real here, Olivia. A true partnership and marriage." He leaned down and kissed her again, longer and deeper than the chaste kiss in the church, and Olivia felt warmth bloom through her entire body. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "We should have some supper and let you rest. It has been an eventful day, to say the least." They ate a simple meal of cold chicken and bread that Vyson had prepared earlier, sitting together at the large dining table. Nathan told her more about the ranch operations, the seasonal rhythms of cattle ranching, the challenges of the Nevada climate. He spoke of his hopes to expand the herd and perhaps diversify into horse breeding, as the land was good for it, and there was steady demand from the army and from settlers heading further west. When the meal was finished and the dishes cleared, Nathan showed Olivia upstairs to the bedroom they would share. It was a large, pleasant room with a handmade bed covered in a colorful quilt, a wardrobe, a washstand, and windows that overlooked the ranch yard. Someone, probably Vicent, had already brought up her carpet bag and set it on a chair. "I will give you privacy to prepare for bed," Nathan said, suddenly seeming a bit uncertain. "I need to check on a few things in the barn, make sure the horses were properly settled. Take your time." After he left, Olivia changed into her nightgown and brushed out her long hair, her hands trembling slightly with a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. She had known this moment would come when she left Philadelphia to marry a stranger, but she had expected it to be with Gerald Patterson, a duty to be endured. With Nathan, it felt entirely different. She wanted to be close to him, to truly become his wife in all ways. When Nathan returned, he had washed and changed into clean clothes. He moved slowly, giving her time to object or ask for more time if she needed it, but Olivia simply held out her hand to him. He took it and sat beside her on the edge of the bed. "We do not have to rush anything," Nathan said gently. "I know this is all very sudden, and if you need time to adjust to being married, I understand." "I do not want to wait," Olivia said softly. "I want to be your wife in every way, Nathan. I trust you." What followed was tender and sweet, Nathan taking great care to make sure she was comfortable and unafraid. Afterward, as they lay together in the darkness with Olivia's head resting on Nathan's chest, she felt a sense of peace and rightness that she had not experienced since before her parents died. This was home now. This room, this man, this new life in the Nevada territory. The next few weeks passed in a pleasant blur of adjustment and discovery. Olivia learned the rhythms of ranch life, rising early to prepare breakfast for Nathan and the hands, spending her days tending the kitchen garden that had been neglected during Nathan's absence, learning to preserve food for the winter, and beginning to put her own touches on the house. She sewed new curtains from fabric. Nathan took her into town to purchase rearranged furniture to make the spaces more efficient, and spent her evenings reading in the library or talking with Nathan about everything and nothing. Vicent became her ally and friend, teaching her about the local plants and which ones could be used for cooking or medicine. He spoke often of Nathan's parents, helping Olivia understand the history of the ranch and the legacy she was now part of. Tom and Ben were respectful but kept their distance, though she caught them looking grateful whenever she included extra dessert with the meals. Nathan proved to be everything Olivia could have hoped for in a husband. He was patient with her mistakes as she learned to cook on the big cast iron stove, appreciative of her efforts to improve the house, and genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions on ranch decisions. He brought her small gifts when he went into town, a new book or a pretty ribbon, things that showed he was thinking of her. At night, their physical intimacy deepened, and Olivia discovered passions she had not known she possessed. About 6 weeks after their marriage, on a warm September morning, Olivia was hanging laundry on the line behind the house when she saw a rider approaching from the direction of town. As the figure drew closer, she recognized Sheriff Harper, and her stomach clenched with worry. Official visits rarely brought good news. Nathan emerged from the barn when the sheriff rode into the yard. "Bill, what brings you out this way?" Harper dismounted, his expression grim. "Wanted to give you folks a heads up. Patterson left town about a week ago. Said he was heading to California to try his luck in the gold fields. But yesterday, a prospector found his wagon abandoned about 10 miles south of here, down near the old Mesquite Canyon area. His horse was grazing nearby, but there was no sign of Patterson himself. Could he have had an accident? Nathan asked, though his tone suggested he was thinking of other possibilities. Could have, but the thing is, someone spotted him in town 3 days ago when he was supposed to be long gone. He was drinking at the saloon and telling anyone who would listen that he had been cheated out of his bride and meant to get what was owed to him. The sheriff looked uncomfortable. "I do not mean to alarm you folks, but I wanted you to be aware. Patterson might be nursing a grudge, and it is better to be cautious." Olivia felt fear spike through her. "Do you think he means to harm us?" "I think he is a bitter man who did not like being shown up in front of the town. Whether that makes him dangerous or just pathetic, I cannot say for certain. But Nathan, I would keep your eyes open and maybe keep your rifle handy for a while, just in case." After the sheriff left, Nathan insisted on teaching Olivia how to shoot. They spent an afternoon behind the barn, Nathan patiently showing her how to load and fire the Winchester rifle he kept above the fireplace. She proved to be a decent shot after some practice, though she prayed she would never need to use the skill against another human being. The worry about Patterson cast a shadow over the ranch for the next few weeks, but as time passed with no sign of trouble, they gradually relaxed back into their routines. Nathan theorized that Patterson had either truly left for California or had met with some misadventure in the desert. The sheriff sent word that he had closed the investigation. lacking any evidence of foul play. October arrived with cooler temperatures and the beginning of the busy season for cattle ranching. Nathan and the hands spent long days moving the herd to winter pastures and culling out steers to be sold at market. Olivia often rode out with Vicent to bring them lunch, using these opportunities to learn more about the land and the work that sustained them. It was on one of these rides, returning to the ranch house in the late afternoon, that Vicent suddenly pulled his horse up short. "Senora, do you smell smoke?" Olivia sniffed the air and caught it too, the acrid scent of burning wood. They spurred their horses forward, cresting a small rise to see smoke rising from the direction of the ranch buildings. As they got closer, Olivia's heart sank. It was not the house or barn that was burning, thank God, but the hay shed, and the flames were already substantial. They galloped into the yard to find Tom frantically hauling buckets of water from the pump, while Ben tried to beat back flames with a wet blanket. The fire had clearly been burning for a while, and the structure was likely lost, but they needed to prevent it from spreading to the other buildings. "Where is Nathan?" Olivia shouted as she jumped down from her horse. "Out with the herd on the North Range," Tom yelled back. "Ben just discovered the fire about 10 minutes ago. We rang the bell, but I do not know if the boss heard it from that distance." Olivia grabbed buckets and joined the firefighting effort, forming a chain with Vicent to pass water from the pump. Her arms ached and her dress was soaked and filthy, but they kept working. After what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, Nathan and Ben arrived at a gallop, having seen the smoke from the range. With their additional help, they managed to keep the fire from spreading, though the hay shed itself was a total loss, burned to the ground along with several months' worth of stored hay for the winter. As the last of the flames died to smoking embers, they all stood catching their breath, faces blackened with soot. "How did it start?" Nathan asked, examining the remains of the structure in the fading daylight. Vicent walked the perimeter carefully, then stopped and pointed. "Here, boss. This is where it started, and look." He held up the remains of a kerosene lamp, the glass shattered but the metal base recognizable. "We do not store lamps in the hay shed. Someone set this fire deliberately." A cold fury settled over Nathan's features. "Patterson." "We do not know that for certain," Olivia said, though she suspected Nathan was right. "Who else would have reason to try to destroy our property?" Nathan looked around at the darkening landscape. "If he is still out there, we need to find him before he tries something else." They organized a search party, Nathan and Tom on horseback with rifles, while Vicent stayed at the ranch with Ben to guard the remaining buildings. Nathan wanted Olivia to stay in the house with the rifle, and after a brief argument, she agreed, recognizing that she had neither the tracking skills nor the experience to be useful in a nighttime search. She spent a tense 2 hours in the house, rifle across her lap, jumping at every creak and shadow. When she finally heard horses returning, she rushed to the window in relief, expecting to see Nathan and Tom. But it was only Tom, alone and empty-handed. "We lost his trail about 2 miles east in the rocks," Tom explained after dismounting. "Boss is still out there looking, said he would circle back before full dark. But there is something you should know, Mrs. Quinn. We found tracks and signs of a camp in an old line shack about 3 miles from here. Someone has been squatting there for a while, probably watching the ranch and waiting for an opportunity." Olivia felt sick at the thought of Patterson lurking nearby, nursing his grudges and planning destruction. She made coffee to keep herself busy, but her eyes kept returning to the clock, watching the minutes tick past as darkness fell completely. It was nearly 9 in the evening when Nathan finally returned, tired and frustrated. "I lost him." Whoever set that fire knows this country well enough to disappear when they want to." He accepted the coffee Olivia pressed into his hands gratefully. "Tomorrow I am riding into town to speak with Sheriff Harper again. This has gone beyond a simple grudge. Patterson, if it is him, has committed arson and is clearly dangerous." But they never got the chance to report the fire to the sheriff. As Nathan and Olivia were preparing for bed, a shout came from outside. Nathan grabbed his rifle and rushed to the window to see Vicent and the Jackson brothers gathered in the yard, looking toward the southern pasture. "Boss, there is someone out there," Vicent called. "We heard shots fired." Nathan pulled on his boots rapidly. "Stay in the house," he ordered Olivia. "Bar the door after me and do not open it unless you hear my voice." But before he could leave the bedroom, a crash came from downstairs, the sound of breaking glass. Nathan raced down the stairs with Olivia right behind him despite his orders. They found a rock lying on the living room floor, surrounded by glass from the shattered window with a piece of paper wrapped around it. Nathan untied the paper and read it quickly, his expression darkening with rage. "It is from Patterson. He says we stole his bride and his future, so he is going to take ours. He is threatening to burn down the house next with us in it. Nathan, we need to leave. Go to town and get help." Olivia was terrified now, realizing they were under siege from a madman. "No. If we leave, he wins and we have nothing to come back to. He has already destroyed our hay supply for the winter. I will not let him take our home too." Nathan strode to the door and called out to his hands, "Vicent, Tom, Ben, get in here now." The three men hurried into the house, and Nathan quickly barred the door behind them. He explained the situation rapidly, showing them Patterson's note. "We fortify the house tonight and wait him out. When daylight comes, we can see what we are dealing with and make a plan. Tom, you take the upstairs bedroom windows overlooking the front. Ben, the back windows. Vicent, you and I will cover the sides from down here. Olivia, you stay in the kitchen and keep the rifle ready. If anyone gets past us, you shoot without hesitation." They spent a tense night on guard, but no further attacks came. As gray dawn light began to filter through the windows, Nathan cautiously looked outside. "I am going to scout the perimeter. Everyone stay alert." He slipped out the back door, rifle in hand, and disappeared around the corner of the house. Olivia watched from the kitchen window, her heart in her throat. Minutes ticked by with no sign of Nathan, and she was beginning to panic when she saw him emerge from the direction of the barn, walking quickly back toward the house. She met him at the door. "Did you find anything?" "Not Patterson, but I found his camp. He was holed up in the old storage shed behind the barn. There are signs he left in a hurry, probably when he realized we were not going to make it easy for him." Nathan set down his rifle and pulled Olivia into a tight embrace. "I also found something else. Come with me, but carefully." He led her out to the shed, where she saw a bedroll and some supplies that Patterson had clearly abandoned. But what Nathan wanted to show her was scratched into the wooden wall of the shed in crude letters. "Gone to get law. Quinn cheated. Coming back with sheriff. He has gone to file some kind of false claim against us," Nathan said grimly. "Trying to use the law as a weapon since direct attack did not work. We need to get to town first and give our side of the story to Harper." They rode into Lovelock together that morning, leaving Vicent and the boys to guard the ranch. At the sheriff's office, they found Harper already dealing with the situation. Patterson had indeed arrived earlier, wild-eyed and ranting, claiming that Nathan had stolen his mail-order bride through coercion and false promises, and that he was owed compensation. "I sent him to the boarding house to clean himself up while I investigated his claims," Harper explained to Nathan and Olivia. "I was actually about to ride out to your place to get your statements Why do you not tell me what has been happening?" They explained everything: the fire, the threatening note, finding Patterson's camp on their property. Harper's expression grew increasingly angry as he listened. "That settles it then. Patterson will be arrested for arson and terroristic threats. You folks did right in coming to me." He reached for his gun belt. "I will go pick him up now before he decides to run." But when they went to the boarding house where Patterson was supposedly staying, the proprietor reported that he had checked out an hour earlier, saying he was leaving town for good. A quick check of the livery stable confirmed that Patterson had collected his horse and headed east at a gallop. "I will send telegrams to the sheriffs in the neighboring counties. Let them know he is wanted," Harper promised. "And I will keep an eye out in case he doubles back. But between you and me, I suspect he finally realized he was beaten and decided to cut his losses. Most bullies do once they meet real resistance." Nathan was not entirely satisfied with this resolution, but there was little more they could do. They returned to the ranch and spent the next several weeks on high alert, but there were no further incidents. Eventually, word filtered back through law enforcement channels that Patterson had been arrested in California for trying to run a confidence scheme on prospectors and was serving jail time. The threat, it seemed, was truly over. As November arrived and the weather turned cold, life at the Quinn Ranch settled back into peaceful routines. The loss of the hay shed was a setback, but Nathan had good relationships with other ranchers and was able to purchase enough hay to see them through the winter. They began planning to rebuild in the spring, designing a larger, more fire-resistant structure. One morning in late November, Olivia woke feeling queasy and rushed to the wash basin to be sick. Nathan was immediately concerned, but as the symptoms persisted over several days, a different possibility occurred to her. She counted back in her mind and realized her monthly courses were late, very late. "Nathan, I think I might be pregnant," she told him one evening as they sat before the fire in the living room. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession: surprise, joy, worry, then settling on cautious optimism. "Are you certain?" "Not completely, but all the signs point to it. I have been sick in the mornings, I am late, and my body feels different somehow." She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "I think we are going to have a baby, probably sometime in late June or early July." Nathan pulled her into his arms, holding her gently as though she might break. "This is wonderful news, Olivia. Truly wonderful. We will need to make sure you see a doctor, get you whatever you need to stay healthy, and we should start preparing one of the upstairs rooms as a nursery." The next months were both challenging and joyful. Olivia struggled with morning sickness through December, but by January she was feeling better and threw herself into preparing for the baby's arrival. She sewed tiny gowns and blankets, converted one of the spare bedrooms into a nursery, and read everything she could find about childbirth and infant care. Nathan was attentive to the point of being overprotective, insisting she not lift anything heavy or ride horses, or do any of the dozens of tasks she had been managing perfectly well for months. It would have been annoying except that she could see the love and concern behind his hovering, so she bore it with patience and occasional gentle mockery. "Nathan Quinn, I am carrying a baby, not dying of consumption. I am perfectly capable of hanging laundry. I know. But let me do it anyway. It makes me feel useful." Spring arrived with its bustle of activity, the cattle being moved to fresh pastures, new calves being born, the garden being planted. Olivia's stomach swelled unmistakably now, and she felt the baby move inside her, strong kicks and rolls that never failed to amaze her. Nathan would place his hand on her belly in the evenings, feeling the movements, talking to the child in a soft voice about the ranch and the life awaiting him or her. On a warm evening in early July, Olivia's water broke as she was preparing dinner. Nathan immediately panicked in a way he never had when facing drought or fire or any other ranch crisis. "What do I do? Should I ride for the doctor? Should I boil water? I should boil water, that is what people do, right?" "Nathan, calm down. First babies take time. You need to ride to town and fetch Dr. Morrison. Also, stop by the Harper house and ask Martha to come help. She has delivered 3 babies of her own and will know what to do." Olivia spoke calmly, even though her own nervousness was mounting. "Tell Vicent I need clean sheets brought upstairs and ask him to keep water hot on the stove." Nathan kissed her firmly. "I will be back as fast as I can with the doctor. You are the bravest woman I have ever known, Olivia Quinn." He rode for town at a speed that probably scared his poor horse, while Olivia made her way upstairs to prepare. Vicent proved to be surprisingly helpful, bringing everything she asked for without embarrassment and positioning himself as a guard at the bottom of the stairs to handle any needs that arose. Martha Harper arrived first, bustling in with the confident air of an experienced mother and frontier woman. She examined Olivia and declared that she was progressing normally, but had several hours to go yet. When Dr. Morrison arrived an hour later, he confirmed Martha's assessment and settled in to wait. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next morning. Nathan sat with Olivia when the doctor allowed it, letting her squeeze his hand during contractions and wiping her forehead with cool cloths. Several times she was certain she could not continue, that the pain was beyond what she could endure, but Martha's steady encouragement and Nathan's presence kept her going. Finally, as the sun was rising on a beautiful July morning in 1883, Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The sound of his first cry was the sweetest thing she had ever heard. Dr. Morrison placed the baby in her arms, a tiny perfect creature with a full head of dark hair and Nathan's nose. "He is beautiful," Nathan whispered, tears streaming unashamedly down his face. "You are amazing, Olivia." "I love you so much." "I love you too," she murmured, exhausted but filled with joy as she looked at their son. What should we name him? They had discussed names endlessly during her pregnancy but had never quite settled on one. Now, looking at the baby, Nathan said, "What about James?" "After my father, James Quinn." "James Nathan Quinn," Olivia amended, "so he has part of you in his name too." Little James proved to be a relatively easy baby, sleeping reasonably well and nursing eagerly. Olivia recovered her strength over the following weeks, and with Martha's help and advice, she learned the skills of motherhood. Nathan was a devoted father, spending every free moment holding his son or watching him sleep with an expression of wonder on his face. The ranch prospered over the next few years. Nathan expanded the herd as planned and began breeding horses, which proved profitable. They hired an additional hand to help with the increased work, a young cowboy named Sam who had worked on ranches throughout Wyoming and Montana before settling in Nevada. In the spring of 1885, Olivia discovered she was pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, perhaps because she knew what to expect, and in December of that year, she gave birth to a daughter they named Caroline Ruth, the Ruth after Olivia's mother. James, now 2.5, was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything from changing her nappies to singing her to sleep. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm of work and family. The Quinn Ranch became known throughout Pershing County as a well-run operation with fair owners. Olivia became involved in the Lovelock community, helping to establish a lending library and a school for the area children. Nathan served on the town council for several terms, helping to guide Lovelock through the growing pains of transitioning from rough frontier town to established community. They never heard from Gerald Patterson again after his arrest in California. Sheriff Harper eventually reported that Patterson had died in prison of influenza in 1887, bringing that chapter of their lives to a final close. Olivia felt no joy at the news, only relief that the threat was permanently ended. As the children grew, the Quinn household became a lively, loving place. James proved to have inherited his father's affinity for animals and his mother's love of learning, equally comfortable mending a fence or reading a book. Caroline was adventurous and bold, driving her parents to distraction with her fearlessness, but also making them proud with her spirit. In 1889, when James was 6 and Caroline was 3, Olivia gave birth to twin boys, Thomas and William. Nathan joked that they now had enough children to run the ranch entirely with family labor, though Olivia pointed out that they would need to wait at least 15 years for that plan to come to fruition. Vicent remained with the ranch, becoming an honorary grandfather to the children. He taught James to ride when the boy was barely 4, taught both James and Caroline Spanish, and told them endless stories about their grandparents and the early days of the ranch. Tom and Ben Jackson eventually moved on to start their own place further west, but they remained friends and occasional business partners with Nathan. The children attended the school in Lovelock, riding into town together on horseback once they were old enough. Olivia insisted they all learn to read and write well, do mathematics, and understand basic science. Nathan taught them practical skills, animal husbandry, tracking, shooting, riding, and all the knowledge needed to survive and thrive in the Nevada territory. As Nevada moved toward statehood in the late 1880s and early 1890s, the Quinn family was part of the civic discussions about the territory's future. Olivia became known as an advocate for women's education and property rights, speaking at town meetings with an eloquence that came from her Philadelphia education, and a passion born of personal experience. She never forgot that she had come west with nothing, dependent on the kindness of a stranger, and she worked to create systems and opportunities so other women would have more choices. Nathan respected and supported her civic involvement, even when some of the more traditional ranchers grumbled that women should stay home and let men handle politics. He would simply smile and say, "My wife is smarter than most of the men in this county, including me. I would be a fool not to listen to her opinions." In the summer of 1893, 10 years after they first met on a Kansas City train platform, Nathan and Olivia stood together on their porch watching their 5 children play in the yard. James was 11 now, tall and serious, helping his father more and more with ranch responsibilities. Caroline at 8 was still fearless, currently attempting to teach the twins to lasso a fence post. The twins themselves, now 4 years old, were identical in appearance but opposite in temperament. Thomas quiet and thoughtful while William was boisterous and constantly in motion. "You ever think about that day we met?" Olivia asked, leaning against Nathan's shoulder. "How different everything could have been." "I think about it often," Nathan admitted. "If your ticket had not been stolen, if I had not been on that train, if you had married Patterson, every moment that brought us together feels like Providence." I was so frightened that day, standing on the platform with no money and no future. I thought my life was over before it had truly begun. Olivia looked up at her husband, seeing the silver starting to thread through his dark hair, the lines around his eyes from years of squinting into the Nevada sun. He was even more handsome to her now than he had been at 30. "You gave me everything, Nathan. A home, a family, a purpose. You gave me love. You gave me the same, Olivia. Before I met you, I was just going through the motions of living, working the ranch because it was what I knew, but not truly engaged with life. You reminded me how to laugh, how to hope, how to build a future worth having. He kissed her gently. I would buy you 1,000 train tickets and 1,000 wedding rings if it meant I got to spend my life with you. One of each was quite sufficient, Olivia said with a smile, holding up her hand where the simple gold band still circled her finger, worn smooth by years of wear but still solid. Though I suppose if you insist on buying me jewelry, I would not object to a nice pair of earrings for our anniversary next month. Nathan laughed, the sound rich and happy. Duly noted, Mrs. Quinn. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over their land, their children's voices carrying on the evening air. The journey from that desperate moment on a Kansas City platform to this peaceful evening on a Nevada ranch had been filled with challenges and dangers, but also with love and growth and the building of something lasting. James called out then, "Pa, Ma, come look." William caught the fence post. The pride in his voice at his little brother's accomplishment made both parents smile. "We better go congratulate the master roper," Nathan said, taking Olivia's hand. "In a moment," Olivia replied, holding him back briefly. "I just want to say thank you one more time. For seeing me when I needed to be seen, for helping when you had no obligation to do so, for loving me when I had nothing to offer but myself. Olivia Quinn, you have never had nothing to offer. You came into my life with courage and intelligence and a heart that was already capable of great love. The train ticket and the wedding ring were just props in a much larger story." Nathan cupped her face gently in his hands. "A story I am grateful every day to be part of." He kissed her again, longer this time, until Caroline's voice interrupted with giggles. "Ma and Pa are kissing again." "That is disgusting." They broke apart laughing and together walked down the porch steps to join their children in the yard, to celebrate William's roping achievement and Caroline's teaching skills, and whatever else the evening might bring. This was their life now, built from unexpected kindness and a stolen train ticket, from a cowboy's generosity and a mail-order bride's courage, from love that had grown in the wild spaces of the American West and flourished into something beautiful and enduring. As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, the family moved back toward the warm, welcoming house. Olivia paused at the door to look back at the land stretching out in all directions, thinking of the girl she had been 10 years ago, frightened and alone on a train platform, and the woman she had become, surrounded by family and purpose and deep, abiding love. The West had given her everything she had hoped for and so much more than she had dreamed possible. And it all started with a stolen ticket, a kind cowboy, and a simple gold wedding ring that represented not just a marriage, but a second chance at life itself. Inside, Vicent was waiting with dinner ready, the table set for the whole family. They gathered around it, the adults and children together, sharing food and conversation and laughter. This was home, Olivia thought, watching Nathan tease the twins while James explained something earnest to Vicent and Caroline helped serve the food. This was family. This was the future she had traveled across a continent to find, the dream she had clung to when everything seemed lost. "Thank you for this meal and for the blessings of family," Nathan said when everyone was seated, speaking the grace they always shared before dinner. "Thank you for bringing us together and keeping us safe. May we always remember to be grateful for what we have and generous to those in need." "Amen," the family chorused, and Olivia added her own silent prayer of thanks for the man who had bought her a train ticket and a wedding ring, and in doing so had given her the world. The years continued to pass in the way that years do when life is full and good. The children grew tall and capable. James eventually took over more and more of the ranch management, showing the same steady competence his father possessed. Caroline shocked everyone by declaring her intention to become a doctor, traveling to San Francisco for medical school in her late teens, though she returned to Nevada to practice afterward, becoming the first female physician in Pershing County. Thomas and William chose different paths, despite being twins. Thomas became a lawyer, serving the growing community's need for legal expertise, while William followed in his mother's civic footsteps, eventually being elected to the Nevada state legislature. Through it all, Nathan and Olivia remained the center of the family, their love for each other deepening with each passing year. They grew old together in the house by the Humboldt River, watching their children build their own lives, welcoming grandchildren in time, and always remembering the improbable series of events that had brought them together. When they were both in their 60s, sitting together on their porch on a summer evening much like that one years before, Olivia turned to Nathan and said, "If I had to live my life over again, I would not change a single moment. Not the theft, not the fear, not the uncertainty. Because it all led me to you." Nathan took her hand, his thumb rubbing over the wedding ring that had never left her finger in all those decades. "That is the greatest compliment anyone has ever given me, Olivia Quinn, and I feel exactly the same way. Every moment, good and difficult, brought us here, together." They sat in contentment as the sun set over the Nevada landscape they had made their own, two people who had started as strangers on a train platform and had built a life and a legacy together. The mail-order bride who had lost everything had found something far more precious than she had set out seeking, and the cowboy who had shown kindness to a stranger had received love and family and purpose beyond measure. Their story became a local legend in Lovelock, told and retold over the years as an example of how sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best outcomes, how kindness creates ripples that spread far beyond the initial gesture, and how love can bloom even in the harsh soil of the American frontier when two hearts are brave enough to take a chance. And through it all, through decades and children and grandchildren, through prosperity and hardship, through every season of their long lives together, Olivia kept the train ticket stub from that journey west, preserved carefully in her mother's Bible. Next to it, Nathan had placed the receipt for the wedding ring he had bought that day in Lovelock, two pieces of paper that represented the beginning of everything that mattered. Their love story was not of the dramatic, whirlwind variety that made for sensational tales. Instead, it was steady and deep, built on mutual respect and genuine affection, and the daily choice to be kind to each other even when life was hard. It was a love that grew in the space between words, in shared work and shared dreams, in the quiet moments at the end of long days, and the joyful chaos of raising a family. In the end, that was perhaps the most remarkable thing about Nathan and Olivia Quinn. Not that their story began in such an unlikely way, but that they built something so lasting and true from that fragile beginning. They proved that love does not require perfect circumstances, or romantic gestures, or destiny spelled out in the stars. Sometimes it simply requires one person to see another person's need and respond with generosity, and for both people to have the courage to build something new together, brick by brick, day by day, year by year. As the twilight deepened on that evening late in their lives, Nathan and Olivia rose together and walked hand in hand back into their house, the house that had sheltered their family for so many years, the house where their children had been born and raised, the house that represented every dream they had dared to dream together. Behind them, the Nevada landscape stretched out in shades of purple and gold, beautiful and harsh and eternal, the Wild West that had tested them and shaped them and ultimately rewarded their courage with more blessings than they could count. And above it all, the same stars that had looked down on a frightened young woman on a Kansas City platform, and a kind cowboy heading home now watched over the family they had created, the legacy they had built, and the love that had made it all possible. This was their story from beginning to end, from a stolen train ticket and a simple gold ring to a life filled with purpose and family and deep, abiding love. It was a story worth telling, worth remembering, worth celebrating. It was, in every sense, a life well lived and a love well earned. And it all began with an act of kindness on a summer morning in 1882, when a cowboy saw a woman in distress and decided to help, never imagining that in saving her journey west, he was also beginning his own journey toward everything that would make his life complete.